And I'm Ripley.
And I'm John.
And this is Comicsplaining.
The show where we're back off hiatus. With the X-Men, anyway. That's right. This is no longer a Hulk podcast because I found something to be excited about now.
Oh, no.
No!
We lost Hulk.
You could pick Hulk back up. We could just continue with Hulk on that end.
And make it a Hulk podcast. And then I force it to only be Hulk. Hulk
Wrong.
is strongest. Hulk will dominate.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
Dang.
Anyway, what happened last time with the X-Men?
It was Hulk time.
That's true.
Hulk time, and also there was racism, and also Wolverine was there.
That's true. All three of those things are accurate.
I think that's all that matters.
No.
That's the important points.
No, I think you're missing a lot. What do you think?
No, that sounds right.
No? Okay, well, let's see.
2-1. The motion carries.
Hulk ended up in Canada, called by a witch who wants to reverse the curse of the Wendigo on her brother after he consumed his friend Henri on a hunting trip.
Oh, yeah.
As you do.
That was dumb.
Just guys being bros.
Like, most of that was kind of dumb. I mean, it worked emotionally for Hulk, but that was a story.
Her brother Paul's friend George is here, but he still doesn't think it's a good idea. But it works. She calls both her brother and Hulk there, but unbeknownst to anyone, the Canadians sent in Wolverine to clear this up.
Mm-hmm.
He fought the Wendigo and stabbed it and then went back to fighting Hulk. Marie knocks both Wolvie and Hulk out to work her magic, but after George sees the Hulk revert to Bruce Banner, he wants no part of it, then thinks about his debt, and thinks of Marie, and decides to take the curse onto himself, which worked. The Canadians are tired of waiting for Wolverine to get back, so they send in a group of commandos to first gas the Hulk and then bring him back. The first part works, the second not as much, as he bursts loose on the helicopter flight back. Hulk then runs into Krakoa Jackson, a retired road musician, traveling to meet up with his estranged son at the local prison. Little did he know, his son Levon and his racist fellow detainee Anvil have been hooked together with a special energy handcuffs. After several trials on the way, Hulk and Krakoa make it to the prison, but CJ touches the energy shackle and immediately dies. Hulk smashes Thumb before thumbing out of there with Jackson's body, burying him in a grave complete with a tombstone.
And I cried myself to sleep.
And you cried
That
yourself
was
to sleep.
Weirdly effective and sad, despite the odd tone of the early... I remember it now.
Well, what happened the time before that?
There was a... There's... What's...
You know what?
There's a past?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Alright, I can narrow this down.
It was the end of the story with the Beast.
Oh.
No, but before that it was Morbin time.
You're way off.
No? Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not Beast, if not more... It didn't have to do with the writers, did it?
No.
Oh!
In this...
It's because that's episode's the one that got messed up. That's why I don't remember.
You still listened to it. You're full of shit.
You think I remember that?
It fell in the memory hole even though we were there.
You guys have been super useful in this intro, and I really gotta appreciate that.
I'm sorry.
Alright, it's only a small section of the the episode before that matters. It's the story with Iceman and the Human Torch. What were the X-Men talking about when they came up around to break the fight up?
They had some kind of mission that Professor X gave them.
Wait, that issue mattered?
Yeah? I mean, not hugely, but I'm just establishing that a lot of things have happened in very short order, actually, here over in the X-Men.
I get that. It's just, that was, like, the least important thing I thought we were headed.
Yeah, honestly.
It's not even, like, necessarily something I can prove, but I think it's very easy to make the case that this may be what they're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. It just, that's amazing. Is this what you meant by, you learn things if you read it by doing it this way?
No. That's something we're gonna more encounter as we come in, and you may see what I'm talking about, or I may have to explain it a little bit later. It may or may not be apparent.
Either way.
You know what I noticed?
What?
This comic has 68 big pages, which is very sad.
Yeah, that's kind of a disappointment, isn't it?
68 pages, and we're on episode 70 now. That was so close to matching up on so many fronts.
We've been so close. If only we hadn't stopped for Gwen's weed shirt.
And maybe we should have skipped some of the Hulk?
No. It was all crucial.
All
crucially
Hulk all
important.
the time. We're done with that now, but it was very important in the moment.
Yes.
Sometimes you just have to Hulk, I guess.
So the issue we're talking about is Giant Size X-Men from April of 1975. Written by Len Wein, pencils by Dave Cockrum, inks by Dave Cockrum and Peter Iro, colors by Glynis Wein, and lettered by John Costanza. Sorry?
That's a lot of new names.
No, not really. Most of them we know.
Or, well, I guess names that I don't know nearly as well as,
Yeah. We've got two new names here, though. We've got Dave Cockrum and Peter Iro. Dave Cockrum is another one of those comic book creators who it turns out were writing letters into the books long before they got their start publishing.
God, it really does work that way.
And apparently through this correspondence, he also met his first wife, which is
What?
adorable. I don't know how that works, but isn't it fun?
Certainly hope it is, because that sounds unlikely.
And then I found one fun fact, and then I found another one, which is that after he passed in the mid-2000s, Chris Claremont named the president in a novelization of one of the X-Men movies after him. He's President Cockrum.
Oh my gosh.
That's sweet,
That's
actually.
That's really adorable, because they had a pretty good run on X-Men with Dave Cockrum and Chris. And that just leaves Peter Iro. I don't know anything about Peter Iro, so that was quick.
Yeah.
Well, presumably he was born at some point.
And he may or may not be alive.
May or may not be a man. We've got all of these things that may or may not be true.
Yep.
That's about all I got. But I would like to note to both of you, memory hounds, as you've proven yourselves at being today, this is an issue worth paying particular attention to, as it is revisited on a semi-frequent basis.
Okay.
Really?
Mm-hmm. From the ashes of the past, there grow the fires of the future. The grandeur and the glory begin anew with Second Genesis.
I will do my best to pay attention. Jean's hair is huge.
Well, it's the 70s, you know.
No, it's just it's just really weird. Like this white part I thought was part of her hair, but it's not.
Oh, God.
I don't...
What is going on in the background there, actually?
Oh, those are wings.
Oh, God, that's what it is. That makes so much sense.
Very fluffy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this isn't actually part of the story. This is just the splash opening page. We open as the sun sets on the peaceful German village of Winseldorf, high in the Alps. Not as peaceful as usual, though. Tonight, the town is abuzz with the shouts of angry townsfolk as they chase a furry in a jumpsuit through the through the streets of their hometown. The monster doesn't seek to attack, though. No, Kurt Wagner, once a circus performer with der Jahrmarkt, which it just says means the fair, according to Google.
Yeah.
He seeks to escape. He scrambles up the side of a building, away from the angry mob, but now he's trapped, and the townsfolk are apparently willing to burn a whole-ass house down, so long as they get Kurt, too.
Well, they are holding crosses.
And burning torches. I think the whole vibe that they're not friendly for those reasons is pretty clear here.
Also, I loved this episode.
This is much better than the episode. Shut the fuck up. He yells down... I swear to God, if you guys don't let me off the hook for fucking showing you the goddamn X-Men cartoon, I'm gonna just walk out of this fucking podcast.
No, you're not on the hook. I didn't realize just how much they really did lift. Like, shot for shot.
Well, anyway, he yells down at the crowd, protesting his innocence and deeming the lot of them fools. The crowd are either unmoved or further angered by his speech, and the torches begin to fly.
Okay, this wasn't in the episode.
No, and they set the roof around Kurt ablaze. He grieves the situation for a moment. He'd come here in peace, to live alongside average people and learn instead of having to serve as the freak show for everyone there at the circus. He instead feels that all he's learned is violence, and finally the cornered man responds in kind, leaping back down into the crowd and trying to fight his way free. He's a flurry of punches and blows. The sheer surprise of it carries him a good way, and his momentum a bit beyond that, but eventually he's slowed down enough that he's overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of the mob.
They have a stake?
Yep. They hold Kurt tight to the ground as one of their number goes to fetch a stake to finish the monster off.
What the fuck?
Suddenly, the men all stop, frozen in place. Disbelieving, Kurt shakes himself free of their grasp. Aloud, he puzzles over it as he gets to his feet, but his question of what happened to them is quickly answered as Charles Xavier wheels his way towards him, taking credit. Charles says that he heard Kurt say that he came here to learn, and so offers him a place at his school for mutants. Kurt, worn down from the events of the night, asks if Xavier can make him normal, and Xavier points out that the normal around here is pretty shifty. Why not come to my school where you can be yourself? And so Kurt agrees, and the pair head for home.
You know, normally I'd complain about what Xavier does with mental powers, but...
I think in this case it's justified.
Yeah, it's...
He's not outright bad. For all my bitching about Charles, he's not out and out bad. It's just more complicated than that.
Because these people really were about to murder a man.
He's not wrong about a lot of the reasons that he gives and the reasons that the X-Men should be there.
Mm-hmm.
But...
He's just kind of a shithead.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's him. Anyway, we are now back in fucking Quebec!
No!
We're at that Air Force base where Wolverine hangs out, and he comes through a door in a conference room, where apparently he's been called in to meet with some big muck-a-muck. They adjusted his costume a little bit here since the last time we saw him, but the big deal is, yet again, Charles Xavier, who apparently must have bent an ear somewhere up the chain of command to make Wolverine hear an offer. He knows all about Wolvie's whole deal, and he needs mutants, desperately. Which sounds a bit creepy. Wolverine is more intrigued than creeped out, but he does have a whole job here and everything. And then Charles makes a point that really gets to him. So remember how aggravated he was at the end of that fight with the Hulk when they made him get back in the helicopter?
Yeah.
When what he really wanted was round 2?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Being leashed in like that got stuck in his craw. And Charles points out that if he worked for him, he could actually be effective instead of having to deal with the whole bullshit chain of command instead of doing what has to get done. So yeah, Wolverine's in on this. Apparently the Canadian Air Force were not exactly aware of the content of Chuck's pitch. They're not happy. The Canadians yet again make a point of how much they've invested in Wolverine, and they'll imprison him if he tries to desert. Well, in his words, he resigns his commission.
Is Canada a free country?
He gives them the finger.
Yep, he cuts his commanding officer's tie in half and then threatens him as he and Charles head out the door like, hey, put your money where your mouth is. I'll just be hanging out in this bald guy's mansion. You know the address.
Yes, just come attack a foreign sovereign country.
I don't think that would go too well for Canada, considering what foreign sovereign country it is.
Do you think Chuck can get him a work visa?
You know, I think he actually did get, like, everybody passports, so... But I guess when you're a telepath, it's not
Like,
hard.
how hard is it to convince people to just grant them on extenuating circumstances?
Nashville, Tennessee!
Wow.
Charles Xavier interrupts Banshee's visit to the Grand Ole Opry to pitch him joining the X-Men. Banshee's down with it. Be nice to be on the right side of the law for once.
That
Kind of.
Really?
That was really fast and easy.
Yeah.
Kenya! Not specified where, just Kenya this time.
Somewhere in Kenya.
Yeah, you know, just that one place in Kenya. You know.
Tribesmen climb a long set of stone steps, leading to a hill with an altar at the top. The growing season has been beset with drought. Their crops are dying, and if their crops die, so will their people. They plead to the storm goddess Aurora to save them, offering a sacrifice of some of their livestock in her honor. She tells them to spare their animals, for she doesn't need them. Instead, she just opens up the sky. Aurora flies on the winds of the storm, gifting rain onto the land as her devotees down below exalt her. But there's someone else here to witness this goddess's deeds. Charles Xavier, too, appreciates her talents, but he would like to make her an offer. Here, she is everything to these few people that love her. But out in the rest of the world, they need her too. They won't appreciate her like the people here do, but they do need her. So playing to goddess who don't know that you're entirely too human isn't any kind of real world. Come live in the real world, Aurora. People need you here too. And Aurora is at least intrigued. Charles then continues on his world recruiting tour, landing this time in Osaka, Japan, in the Yoshida family garden, where he shares a cup of tea with young Shiro Yoshida, Sunfire. To Shiro, Charles plays the ego card. He needs help that only Shiro can give, and so he gladly suits up as Sunfire once more.
That is an outfit.
It sure is.
Off now to Siberia, where we land at the Ust-Ordinsky Collective Farm off the shores of Lake Baikal. It's harvesting season, and the farmers are hard at work, tending to an ocean of wheat. When suddenly, from atop a tractor, one of the farmers cries in alarm to one Peter something about his little sister. Pyotr Rasputin looks in the direction his comrade is pointing, where he sees his little sister, Ilyana, playing in the path of a runaway tractor. Immediately he drops his pitchfork, running headlong for his little sister to save her from disaster. Midway through his journey, there's a crackle of energy as Pyotr's skin instead ripples out into belted steel, becoming a human colossus just in time to scoop his sister into his arms and absorb the impact of the tractor against his newly armored body.
Hey, Colossus?
Colossus from Russia?
It's him!
Keep going. Keep going.
Guess he didn't have time, but it doesn't matter because the tractor doesn't stand a chance. Pete's neighbors all stare at him, but someone else wishes to speak. Charles Xavier, as with all the others, extends an offer for Pyotr to join his X-Men in America. Peter briefly wonders if does not his power belong to the state and to the people?
Oh no.
And Charles makes the point instead that by that logic, doesn't his power belong to the world?
Doesn't
my
your
God.
power belong?
Okay,
I'm not gonna do it.
I love seeing the different ways that Chuck is manipulating these people.
That is what I mean. That is what I was reading when I was writing that out. Like, you really do appreciate these comics in different ways, because when you're caught on just the path of the story, it's easy to just buy this. But you can see the way he operates with each of these different people.
Yes.
And
telling them exactly what they need to hear to do what he
Colossus,
wants.
he becomes Andrew Ryan, leader of an underwater fascist state.
A man chooses, a slave obeys!
Oh my god.
BioShock was a really good game. Okay, fuck you.
You got the reference. You got there. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The speech.
But, anyway, you've got it, though. His power belongs to the world, through Charles's argument, and Charles can help him do that. And so the pair take their discussion to the rest of the Rasputin family, but they have no wisdom to lend Pyotr, telling him only to follow his heart. His heart remains in Russia, but Charles's argument has affected him, and so his conscience leads him to America. America, where we find the next mutant on Charles Xavier's recruitment drive. Here in Camp Verde, Arizona, on an Apache reservation, John Proudstar chases a bison on foot as he ruminates on his people. He sees them here on their reservation, sad and trapped, dreaming of stories long past, where once they were proud warriors running proud and free over the plains. Finally, he takes down his quarry, wrestling the bison down to the ground. This act also has not gone unwitnessed. Charles Xavier has come here with a pitch. John's longing for pride for his people is something he can act to achieve. He can be the change he wants to see, and Charles needs John's help. But John thinks this is pretty rich, another white guy here where he needs his help, but not ever here to help. Charles doesn't like that, no siree. I offer you a chance to help the world and you turn your back on me? Then perhaps what they say is true. Perhaps the Apache are all frightened, selfish children.
Oh.
Wow. So that was a lot. I also would like to know who the fuck is actually saying this, but okay.
Also, gotta love those Marvel Native Americans who are pink.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that lasts for way too long.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned it because I did.
It's kind of yikes.
It needs addressing, but unfortunately we still don't figure out how to color people of color in a reasonable way for quite a while now.
At least Aurora was brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aurora was at least kind of brown. She was a little yellow, but
A little bit.
it's still a recognizable skin color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike poor Mr. Proudstar over here.
Who is
Literally pink.
nearly Kirby pink.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, there's one more problem with John Proudstar, and it's that he suffers from Marty McFly syndrome.
Oh no.
And being called chicken goads him into accepting Charles's offer.
Oh.
This does not actually sound like a good team, Chuck. You've manipulated all of them into joining.
It all depends on how well they work together. But here they are, gathered together, posed on the stairs of the mansion, Wolverine at the top to make himself look taller. For those of them who didn't have costumes before, Charles has apparently got the hookup with Reed Richards and fashioned up some unstable molecule costumes for them. Sunfire, though, is getting really irritated with sitting around waiting for Charles to get to the fucking point of why they're here. But it turns out that Charles was just waiting for Scott, who emerges fully in costume as he explains that the rest of the X-Men have disappeared.
Disappeared? What?
Yep. Right before the X-Men disappeared... Right before the X-Men disappeared, Cerebro suddenly detected an enormously powerful mutant on Krakoa, an island in the South Pacific. Anything you guys know about Krakoa, you don't actually know all that much about Krakoa.
I've dropped it out of my brain. I don't know a single thing.
Ignore it because
Nope.
it's not useful to you yet.
I don't know
None
anything.
of that information is helpful to you. Okay.
Okay.
And so, Charles dispatches the X-Men off to reach Krakoa before anyone or anything else gets a chance to. And so they fly off to the other side of the world. Cyclops, Marvel Girl, Angel, Iceman, Havoc, and Lorna Dane, who is still just going by Lorna Dane. It's like if you went to a KISS concert and they're all coming out and they've got the face paint and the hair and the platform boots and shit. And you look over at the drummer and it's just like a regular guy.
Yeah.
Or like it's actually, no, he's still got like the KISS makeup and everything going on, but it's like he just uses his name. We've got Starchild and then there's just Eric. I'm not a KISS Superfan. Please don't send your KISS fan mail to comicsplaining@gmail.com because I had to pull up Wikipedia to make that joke.
Oh, God.
Sorry, KISS Superfans.
Oh no, we're gonna get so much hate
We
mail.
are. They eventually touch down on Krakoa and pile out of the jet and onto the island. Overwhelmed at where to even start looking, because they've got a whole ass island. Before their search for the new mutant gets far, though, suddenly, something. But just what, it seems Scott can't remember.
I love their incredibly short jet. Someone didn't know how long an SR-71 Blackbird
No,
was.
this isn't a Blackbird yet, this is something else.
Really?
The Blackbird is soon, though.
Oh.
No, it's just a weird plane.
Okay.
When Scott comes to, he's on the plane, which is jammed on autopilot and set for home. His costume's in tatters, and his eyes are not doing the thing that they usually do.
This is worse, actually.
This is much worse.
I would prefer his eye-punching beams to whatever is going on right now.
I've seen his eyes done various different ways when they're not working. This is a choice.
It's
It's a choice. Oh, right, Jesus Christ, I hate it.
So nothing he's doing is unjamming the autopilot, so defeated, Psyche just kind of has to wait out the journey back. When he gets back, Charles is not happy to hear the news in a very accusatory way, but as Scott begins to explain how Krakoa left him powerless, Fate decides to have a laugh, choosing that moment for Scott's eyes to rev up again.
Of course.
typical.
At the professor's warning, Summers rushes for a pair of glasses, but it's too late. Before he can make it, the tap slams open to full and he's sent flying backwards by the force of his blasts, now even stronger than they'd ever been before this point.
Rip.
Charles modifies one of Scott's visors for him, and then he gets off to work on his expedition to round up some new mutants. Here's the new plan. First mission for the X-Men. Step 1, go back to Krakoa. Step 2, rescue the original X-Men. Step 3, try not to get beat by whatever the fuck beat the X-Men. Ready, team, go!
God.
Shiro, though, is not a go. He's like, nah, I don't even like you guys. Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me.
And Scott just rolls his eyes before leading the rest of the remaining X-Men onto the plane. The group is definitely still tense. Not really working as a team yet, but apparently we shouldn't count Shiro out just yet, as moments later, Sunfire flies back into view like, hey, can I come back on the plane?
God.
Do you really need to? You clearly are as fast as this thing.
Well, they've got to go all the way to the South Pacific, though.
He can fly.
Finally, our new X-Men are rounding on Krakoa. It doesn't look like much from the air, but they've got to be smart about how they search the island. And so Cyclops gives each mutant a code name and a partner. Aurora and Piotr are now Storm and Colossus, coming from the north side of the island. Banshee and Wolverine are coming from the east. Kurt, now Nightcrawler, will be working with Sunfire from the west, while John, now Thunderbird, will be coming from the south with Cyclops. One by one, the groups drop from the plane, each with a flyer, except for the last, which is clear why that's the entry point for our pilot here. It's clear that the group is rough. Many of them are largely untrained, and the ones that have training aren't used to working with others. For instance, Colossus just jumps out of the plane without Storm.
I mean, he'll be fine.
Right, and that's what he says eventually, but it startles her pretty good before that point. She's not happy about it. She did not appreciate that move.
It looks like he's done this before.
Well, frat boys are the same everywhere.
It's true.
Well, John and Scott finally sat down. Scott's definitely tense about this after what happened last time, and that group of X-Men were trained. These rookies, who knows? They ready to set off when Scott realizes he forgot the mini Cerebro unit back on the plane, but when they turn back, the jet is entirely gone.
Oh, hey, I know this episode of Stargate SG-1.
And even more, when they turn back again, there's now a distant temple where there wasn't one before. Now, it's a pretty obvious trap, but where else are you going to search first in a giant unmapped jungle? They set on their way to the temple, but the very landscape starts to attack them. Vines grab and attack as they go, though the mutants prove more than up to the task. There's also a line up here about how John Proudstar has never much liked the jungle that seems to be implying he's a Vietnam vet. Which also seems to fit with his whole general vibe. I know, Kane's like, you're coming in here. The white man needs me when he needs me, but he doesn't need to come around and help.
And believe it or not,
True.
some of the language I've seen him use actually tracks with Vietnam vet.
I didn't specifically notice anything other than that, but I believe it because I noticed him mention it beyond this. A very specific 14 minutes later, Thunderbird and Cyclops have arrived at their destination.
Not 10, not 15, 14.
So let's take this choose-your-own-adventure approach back to Colossus and Storm, who have finally now reconciled after their little spat. They have also noticed the emergence of this temple. Well, that's as good a direction to go as any. But mere moments later, they too seem to come under siege from the earth around them.
Actually put Russian in the comic.
Yeah, they do that sometimes. Out of nowhere, a rock slide begins, boulders rocketing at the pair. Piotr quickly transforms to protect himself, and then pulls out this absolute smooth operator line. Those mad rocks can no longer hurt me, Aurora, but for threatening you, I will crush them.
I love Colossus from Russia.
Colossus from Russia is
with
so
his
smooth.
fucking slutty outfit.
Yeah, it really is. Everything is on full display.
He does that as he's wailing on all these boulders with a giant tree he just ripped out of the fucking ground.
And sends them in a row into the ocean.
Yep, Storm then thanks him, but points out she's more than capable of handling herself, as she funnels all of the rocks through the air and out into the sea. And now finally they too have arrived at the temple.
So really this whole thing where they split up into groups was completely pointless.
It was mostly just to give the characters a little bit of time to shine and learn to work together.
Yeah.
So back to the east side, boys.
Welcome to Skyrim.
Who are fighting giant lobsters.
This is the beginning of any RPG.
Yes, you fight crab monsters.
This does seem to be a break from the trend. I guess I don't consider giant lobsters to be a manifestation of nature, but I guess that's a point you could make. Anyway, Wolvie is slicing him off some lobster claws, getting ready for the clam-bake of the century, and he's aggravated that Banshee isn't contributing, when all of a sudden he comes screeching on by, frying all of them in one go. Yeah, alright, Wolverine has to give him points to that one, so they continue on their way to the temple.
Well, they should have brought the meat with them. Come on, it's wasteful.
Absolutely. It seems to be animal intervention in the way of Sunfire and Nightcrawler as well. Before they even get the chance to touch down, they're set upon by giant flocks of birds. Shiro is able to fry any bird that comes at him, but Kurt has his own way of dealing with the birds. As each swoops at him, he disappears into a poof of brimstone, bamfing off elsewhere, out of harm's way. Shiro is also a dick for no good reason, but they too arrive unscathed.
I mean, I think that's
kind of just who he is.
That's already been established.
That's just characterization. Well, Big Stone Temple, where to start with that? Gotta get in, right? But wouldn't you know, they locked the door.
Oh, I guess that's it.
They weren't expecting us.
Build a boat and go home, I guess.
All together now, they break down the door, but a moment later, dearly wish that they hadn't. For in the temple, they find the X-Men, ensnared in vines, all seemingly feeding upon them. For a moment, the group stands in stunned silence before Cyclops comes to his senses, urging the others to cut them down. Quickly they do, but as they do, the temple begins shaking to pieces.
They were load-bearing.
Load-bearing mutants. Quickly they gather up the X-Men, carrying them outside just before the temple shakes itself down to the ground. Still, the X-Men seem to be recovering. Or, at least, Warren is. He's aware enough to be horrified that they're here, because this was all a big ol' trap.
It's a trap!
Because the mutant isn't on the island, the mutant is the island.
Oh no, if only I had known that somehow.
If only, if only.
If only that was the thing I knew about that island.
You don't know shit about that island, it's all different.
That was literally the one thing I knew about that island.
Krakoa then radiates out thoughts communicating its origin. Krakoa was the site of an atomic weapons test, which makes me wonder if this is Bikini Atoll we're talking about here. But we don't need to dwell on that. The radiation mutated everything here until it formed a hive mind, but it was hungry. Up until the X-Men arrived. And then it let one go to go bring back more, and that brings us up to date.
Okay.
Well, Krakoa was hungry, and he had the munchies, so he sent Scott to go get snacks. But he's called up Charles in the first place to get the first bunch of snacks.
So he needed to morb on them.
I don't know what the fuck you mean by that.
He definitely needed to get his morb on. He's morbing.
That tracks for me.
Alright.
That makes sense.
Sure. Nom 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 nom.
Exactly!
Well, Krakoa now has laser eyes, and Cyclops orders they scatter so as not to get hit by the laser eyes, but Wolverine takes offense to this. Laser eyes, schmazer eyes, I'm gonna fight this fucking island single-handedly if I have to.
Okay, Wolverine. You take your little blades and fight the island single-handedly.
This dynamic will continue forward, we see.
You're never gonna change.
Scott says, hey, do this completely reasonable thing, and Wolverine's like, no, fuck you.
Pussy! He doesn't have to fight the island single-handedly. Once everyone is done avoiding the laser eyes, they're all pretty on board with Wolverine's plan.
No, they had to ignore the laser eyes. It was important.
So everyone fights the island. They fight the island so hard, they can't even show it to us. They fight that island so good, guys. I swear it was so cool.
Mere words could never begin to describe the sheer, unbridled savagery of the battle that follows.
God,
so we won't even attempt to do it here.
Don't even fucking try.
So much.
Until Charles is finally like, right, this is happening, so guys, new plan. I'm going to fight the island.
Oh my god.
He gets to it, and the X-Men get to taking this fucking island down with the plan they've got figured out, while Xavier has it distracted. Storm begins to brew a mighty tempest. The clouds writhe and the seas roil as the storm begins to brew. The crackling energy between the clouds somehow supercharged Lorna as a mighty blast of lightning revs up her engines. She's fit to bursting with energy, but cries that she can take more, has to take more. Alex doesn't love this plan. He does his best to get his brother to call it off. She could die! But despite that chance, Cyclops doesn't see any option. This isn't going to just stop with them, this is the fate of the entire world. Alex is still furious, but he doesn't attempt to intervene. Still, the storm rages on. There's an unforeseen consequence to the gale, though, as while it's done wonders for Lorna, it's apparently juiced up Krakoa, too.
Oh no.
Well, he is a living island.
Exactly, just like your plants always look better after a nice rain.
If he's the living island, what are they standing on?
The island.
More of him.
He is the whole island. This body that they're fighting
He's
is
just-
just something he's projecting.
Okay.
Exactly. And this has made it more strong. It's made it too strong for Charles to kind of keep it in a headlock like he had been doing. And eventually their mentor has to tap out of the fight. But the X-Men have had enough time to put their plan into action. At the signal of the Summers brothers, Lorna unleashes all of that stored up magnetic energy, smashing through the Earth's crust straight through to the gooey center. And that's about it for Krakoa.
I'm not really sure what that did, though, because magnets don't work that way.
We'll get there. It's kind of alive, but its ability to do so much as hold itself together is shot. With the small caveat of the fact that, oh yeah, all of the X-Men, both past and present, are still on this fucking island.
Uh-huh.
Minor problem.
The island begins shaking itself to pieces, and the jet is too far to make it, so Bobby brews up the biggest ice raft he can fashion. They all scramble aboard, and together, Havoc and Cyclops jet boat the bunch of them the fuck out of there with
Oh my
their
God.
powers. As shit starts getting real with Krakoa. Because you wanted to know what Lorna did? What Lorna did was fucking sever Krakoa's connection to Earth's magnetic lines. And apparently what that means is that Earth decides, yeah, no, we don't want you here anymore, you're out of the club, and fucking yeets Krakoa off into space.
Gravity
Sure.
ceases to exist.
That
What?
sounds real.
That's not how any of this works.
Problem solved. New problem. There's nothing in the space where Krakoa was, and nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be filled by X-Men soon.
Well, and all kinds of water, so at Scott's urging, Bobby covers up this dome in the hopes that just possibly maybe they survive this shit.
Hey, Storm, you can stop making it rain now. That would be really great. That would actually be super helpful right now.
That would actually help quite a bit. Well, the X-Men inside do their best impression of clothes in a dryer, and I frankly think it's pretty rude that Piotr didn't decolossify himself.
Oh my
before this.
God.
No, he had to be made of metal so he wouldn't get hurt. And if everyone else turns into a kind of mushy pulp, it's okay.
I dare say that doesn't seem very communist of him.
It's like, so you know how when I have to put fresh garlic in something, I take the cloves out and I put them in a bowl, and then I put a plate on top of the bowl, and then I shake it really hard.
Yes.
Oh, see, here's the thing. It might not be very communist of him, but the rest of those guys aren't communists.
That's fair.
That's true.
Well, finally, they pop back out of the water, and wouldn't you know it, the waterproof jet also fucking made it.
Fantastic.
Sure!
So, that's convenient. Now, what are we gonna do with 13 X-Men? We've got one more story here, but I'm gonna have to explain it a little bit, because this publishing date is gonna sound pretty wild. We're gonna be reading the B story of Classic X-Men #1 from June of 1986. Because the way you read things is not always the best way.
Yeah.
Classic X-Men was a title that for most of its run was two things. One, it would republish the comics from the beginning of the Uncanny X-Men era where we actually are in the first story here, through the end of the Dark Phoenix saga, sometimes with an added page 1 or 2 in the main story, but it would also run little B stories that usually tied in directly with the events of the comic. Reading these stories without that context would be mostly pointless, but some of them are fun, so I'd consider these little B stories just kind of companion pieces. Think if you could have Tales of Asgard without it having to impact the page count and pacing of the A story.
And
Yeah.
also, they're written like a decade later.
Also, this one is longer than most of these because they, I think, just ran this as the issue without reprinting giant-size X-Men in front of it, so it's a normal. But these largely have a lot of the same people working on them, with a few additions, so sometimes we've got a little bit of a list here. Writing, we have Chris Claremont, where you can see him and Lynn Wein are kind of on the same page at the beginning here, but this is also Chris a decade longer into his career, so keep that in mind.
So this is technically our first encounter with Chris Claremont.
No.
No?
We ran into him before. He did something to do with the writings during that Sentinel story with Roy Thomas and Neil Adams.
Oh.
We also ran into him in something else, but I don't remember what.
This is our first real encounter.
This is our first real full encounter. Pencils are by John Bolton, not the guy who was in the White House, different guy.
What? You're telling me you can't be in the White House and do comics?
I mean, I don't see why you couldn't, but in this case, he didn't.
Inks are also by John Bolton. I have not confirmed that this is the pencil guy. This might be John Bolton White House guy.
That would be so much fun. 2 different guys by the same name doing different jobs on the same book, and they're doing it because it's funny.
Colors by Glynis Wein, and letters by Tom Orzechowski. Which means we have new names. John Bolton, not the White House guy, and Tom Orzechowski.
And other John Bolton,
Potentially.
may or may not be the White House guy.
Exactly. Fun John Bolton fact, Neil Gaiman directed a short film about him, played by someone else, doing an interview with a reporter. Then real John Bolton got to play a guest at a gallery of fake John Bolton's works.
Oh
my god.
That's fun to me. Fun fact about Tom Orzechowski. So you know that thing where sometimes in some Unreal Comics they'll get a weird text box to show they're evil, or they're magic, or they're a robot?
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently he was one of the guys who made big strides on that stuff.
Huh.
I love that.
Isn't it?
One of my favorite things in more recent Thor comics is that Asgardians have a specific font.
They do, and it's relatively recent.
It is very recent.
Like it doesn't... I'm not sure it's more than 20 years old.
It's not.
I'm not even sure it's more than 10.
No, I don't think so.
I noticed this, that, going back and looking at the JMS run, I don't think they were doing it back then.
No, they weren't, but it's one of my favorite things.
Well, he's one of the guys you got to thank. So let's get to it. We're going to cut back in midway through last issue, as Scott bursts into the mansion to tell the professor what became of their ill-fated mission. After Scott's panicked recollection, Charles instead reaches out to relive the memories and see for himself what happened.
I mean, that tracks.
I mean, if you had a traumatized kid who could not fucking speak straight, would that not be what you did to find out what happened to the rest of your kids?
I mean, if you have telepathy, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't see any reason why you wouldn't.
Exactly. But whatever hit them, Scott never even saw it.
It's nice to know that the old jet looks even more pod racery than ever.
It does kind of look like they went back and decided, Blackbird from now. Now Blackbird. Blackbird now. But it's of course now that Scott's eyes start to come back to normal. After watching his student yeet himself across the room, Charles decides, okay, let's not be hasty. First, let's blindfold Scott, and then we can get to work finding more trucks to drive out onto the stand and pull the other trucks that got stuck in the sand out of the sand.
Okay, but does blindfolding Scott actually work?
Yes, actually.
Holy shit.
The whole thing is you've got to get his eyes closed. That's an important part. He could sit here and do this, but eventually you're going to weaken up and do it wrong. If you can pull it tight so that his eyelids stay shut, it will work.
Okay.
So he does that, and then he gets to work. He fashions him up a new visor, so...
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, I didn't, but I was thinking, his new visor is it's bigger.
Yes, it's
more
much bigger.
bubbly.
You actually notice, if you pay attention in there, that they show the old one at the beginning of the issue.
I did notice.
Yep. So, I've actually watched that happen at Daytona Beach, though, a truck driving out into the sand to get another truck that got stuck in the sand out of the sand.
God.
Because that's the thing, everybody drives down the beach, but they don't realize that you gotta have a truck that's able to drive in the beach, or else you'll just get stuck in your axles
Oh, no.
full of sand. But anyway, so he gets Scott sorted out and then gets to work finding more mutants to help his students get out of the trouble that he landed them in. Scott, it seems, hasn't found any time to try and rest and recover from his ordeal. Instead, he's hard at work practicing with his new visor and the different strength level of his blasts. But Charles can't just let him work through his business. Instead, he chooses to push. I guess I kind of get the choice. I mean, again, Scott literally has not taken any time to recover. Something's rattling around inside his head. And it's not just the situation at hand. Charles presses, asking his adoptive son if there's anything wrong. And now he's uncorked the bottle, so here comes the flood. Of course, getting his blast back was a really complicated emotional experience. There's definitely a part of Scott that was like, finally, I can just be a normal guy. I don't have to be afraid of hurting the people I love. This is something you've known I've been stressed out about from the fucking word go. And he mentions, though, that he should have known better. Which Charles fucking agrees with, instead choosing to make this about him. I wish I could walk. You cannot conceive of how I hate my wheelchair, of how I envy you, X-Men. I cope, I endure because I must. Yielding to the alternative, despair, self-pity is unthinkable. I mean, like Christ, give the kid a moment to process his fucking emotions instead of making him feel guilty that you're in a fucking wheelchair.
This was written in the 80s, but I can hear the 60s in Professor X's voice.
This is Charles. This is Charles. So don't man. But we also get to the other side of getting his blast back, because Scott's definitely here working hard, because getting his blast back means he can do something to save his friends, his family, both figuratively and literally. He remarks that the thought of losing his family is worse than being in the orphanage and never having had one at all. Charles takes a moment to note that fucking selection from the expedition backpack full of baggage Scott got from the orphanage, choosing to dust off fear of abandonment out of the pack and then put it on the shelf.
Yeah, hey old man, I got other issues than my eyes.
He then finally does start to set Scott's fears to rest a little bit by revealing that he has a plan. There's a plan. We have something we can do, something we can focus on. He's going to bring in his long-held backup roster for just such an occasion.
So this is the B team that he's just had on paper.
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so the plan rolls into motion, exactly as we saw. Everyone lives through the night, but we dwell on the last question of what are we going to do with 13 X-Men a little more heavily. Charles worries how well these two teams are really going to work together. He ever so carefully built up his original X-Men into a team. He taught them everything they know. They didn't come into it with outside experience of the world. These are very different bunches of people. He then casts his mind about the house, feeling the different pressure points building up between the mansion's occupants. Lorna and Alex, washing dishes, speaking of the future. Alex has never been quite as enthusiastic about this whole X-Men deal as Scott. And with new people, maybe this means he can resume his education and be a normal guy? Which apparently Lorna's down with this. So that's Havoc and Lorna down. What to do with 11 X-Men? Jean Grey has slipped away from the rest of the group to check on Scott. Banshee's found the piano, and so it's been a source of a fun little party starting off downstairs. But Scott isn't there, at least not yet. Business before pleasure.
Nerd.
He wants to finish his debriefing report before he socializes, which is definitely not an excuse. Jean leaves him to his work, but she is a little bit exhausted with the situation as she ponders their relationship. It's not like he doesn't love her, he's just bad at outwardly expressing that love, but that doesn't fully meet her needs sometimes. Charles decides not to dwell any further on that, and instead hovers on the gathering around the piano, as Sean Cassidy bangs out some boogie-woogie tunes, Piotr Rasputin sketches. He explains that the drawings are for his sister, so he can show her what life in America has been like for him. Another member of the group has also noted young Rasputin's drawing. From the shadows, Kurt Wagner compliments Piotr's work. Pete wasn't exactly expecting any kind of compliment for the shadows, not to mention he's still not quite used to Kurt's appearance just yet. Startled, he begins to shift to his armored form. By the time he fully realizes what's going on, it's too late and he's ripped his clothes.
And his mother's not here.
And his mommy's not here to fix it.
Oh, no.
Embarrassed, Piotr asks if Kurt really is a demon, but before Kurt can answer, Bobby Drake mentions that he sure looks like one.
Oh my god, Bobby.
Wow, Bobby, no.
Iceman isn't sure if his parents still love him now that the new baby has come, so he's gotten jealous.
Oh.
Banshee tries to bring the tension in the room down a little bit by saying of course he's not actually a demon, come on now. But Bobby's not done. He's not so sure he trusts these guys in his house. There have been other visitors to the house who have turned out to be only trouble, so why not this lot? To which Kurt points out, dude, we saved your life.
Yeah.
Piotr is also very aware of the ratcheting tension in the room, asking his new comrade what is wrong. Well, you know, any red-blooded American man here in the Cold War here starts charging like a bull whenever he sees red, so that comrade gets Bobby's nostrils a-flaring.
Oh, God.
I'm not your comrade, Rusky, this is America!
Oh, Bobby. So a little bit of misplaced aggression here. You got some stuff to work through, we all understand that, but, you know, you should maybe do some soul-searching.
Look!
Figure that shit out.
Look, Mr. Rasputin here has actually been working on his own issues. Like, he saw a weird blue guy in the dark and got upset, but he dialed it down.
Okay, but imagine you're Bobby, you're constantly fighting the gay thoughts, and here comes this giant, oiled-up Russian beefcake.
In his slutty outfit. With the slits all the way up the side.
Oh, yeah. Showing off all the goods.
Bobby's cold welcome definitely isn't helping Colossus on his decision whether to stay or go, and he's like, what's with the hostility? We're all X-Men here. Bobby now, yet again, sees that the new baby will steal his parents' love, bites back that no, the X-Men are the ones who were here all along, which you might also note does not include Alex and Lorna among their numbers, so someone's crabby.
Hey, Bobby, stop taking your, misaimed thoughts and recognize that you are gay and that you have feelings for him.
Banshee has by now stopped playing piano, engaged in the discussion himself, just trying to get Bobby to fucking chill. They might be different, but they came to help just the same. Why do the X-Men have to be the same as you? Why does it have to be just 5 American white kids? There are mutants all over the world, of all shapes, sizes, colors, and creeds. And Kurt takes that ball and rolls with it, pointing out how Bobby has come to look at the world. I look like a monster, so I am one. You object to Peter's government and condemn him by association? You're all for mutant rights, but only for mutants who fit your aesthetic and political criteria? A most charitable attitude, Herr Drake. Most enlightened.
You know, we're joking, but honestly, this very much reads like just that internalized shit, because a lot of...
Doesn't it? This
A
is
lot-
a really fuck... This is
a lot-
Chris Claremont, motherfucker! Chris Claremont, motherfucker!
A lot of queers who are in the closet have that shit internalized, and they kind of externalize it by being very close-minded.
And are angry about people who are open about it.
And they kind of overcorrect with, like...
Making rules about everything else.
Gatekeeping.
Right. Like, I wouldn't say toxic masculinity is exactly the thing that I want, but it is very much in that vein.
Yes.
Bobby Drake is gatekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
This still works as a fucking read of Gay Bobby.
He's
It
gatekeeping
very much works as a read of Gay Bobby.
because only a bunch of white Americans can be us.
There's also some good points, but there's also, like, I think that I missed that chapter in How to Win Friends and Influence People where it says, call the person you're trying to reason with a bigot.
Yeah. I mean, he's not wrong.
He's not
though.
wrong. He's not wrong, it's just not a good way to make friends.
Yeah.
But he quickly backed down from the tension, offering out his hand in friendship, reminding Bobby that Charles thought they were good enough to bring here. Instead, Bobby slams the door and stomps off elsewhere in the house. Little black rain cloud over his shoulder, still fully intact. Rasputin is now pretty far in the I'm uncomfortable here, I should probably leave camp.
Fair.
He's pretty sure he's going to, come morning. But Kurt instead bids him to stay. They're outcasts. Sure, they can go home and try to hide along the margins of society as before, but nothing's going to change that way. Maybe it means they also have to make some change here at home, but they came to change fearful people. Sometimes that just means your friends need a little bit of work too.
I already love Kurt.
Kurt's
Kurt
really
is
good.
here
I
to
love
stay.
him so much.
That's how I read it anyway. I feel like there's a lot of conversations happening in subtext here, and
Yeah.
I dig it. Just because he's not been part of the discussion, though, does not mean that John Proudstar has not been listening closely. He can see the aspects that are making these two different teams clash, but he also remembers what it was like having brothers in battle back during the war. He misses it. Being back amongst people makes him want that from this, and so he takes his own crack at warming Iceman up, asking him for a tour of the house. But Bobby doesn't bite, pretty much telling him to figure it the fuck out himself. To which Thunderbird's like, bro, chill. I'm just trying to make friends here. Why are you so pissed? And Bobby's like, I have a whole life here. I've got relationships with all these people. You don't get to just show up here and demand to be treated like you belong in on all the personal stuff. Just fuck off and leave us to it. You're not part of my life.
Hey, Bobby, you call this a life?
And he freezes Proudstar into a block of ice, but John flexes and the ice all cracks off, and he's like, we were invited, we're staying. That sounds like a you problem, buddy.
What is his power?
Strong.
Okay, that's what I was picking up on, but I wasn't positive.
I'm not familiar with him.
I'm aware of his existence.
He exists.
He does.
I can imagine why I'm not familiar with him.
Charles isn't the only one tuned into the lines of tension here in the house. Out in the garden, after her discussion with Scott, so is Jean Grey. This is all happening too fast. The original team members are suddenly outnumbered, and they feel like they're on the defense. Maybe they're not quite so special after all. Between that and her woes with her boyfriend, Jean is quite glum and caught up in her own thoughts when she's surprised by Wolverine.
She's surprised by the Wolfman.
The sketchiest looking guy in the world. Oh my god.
His hair looks more like ears, and it doesn't help that his actual ears are covered.
And hey, that's a fang.
He looks like a Wolfman.
I don't think it's a thing, I think it's a cigarette.
No,
Oh.
the other tooth.
Gotcha.
And that cigarette also looks self-rolled. Are you
It's
sure
a
that's a cigar?
cigar?
That seems like...
No, he does seem like the kind of guy
He
who
does
would
seem
roll his
like the
own.
self-rolling guy.
Okay.
He's trashy, you know.
True.
Wow. Well, Wolverine offers the little lady a beer, which she declines, so Wolverine gets to the point that he thinks she's hot stuff, and he's into it, and he'd rather not spend a lot of time beating around the bush playing coy, so he kind of wants to know if she's into it too.
Is she old enough to drink beer?
Probably.
It's unclear how old any of them are.
Yeah.
But Jean was at college before anyone
That's
else
true.
left, so
That's
Jean
true.
may be
Okay.
among the older
Okay.
members of the crew.
So, Wolverine here isn't being as
Not to
skeevy.
mention he's Canadian. The Canadian drinking age is 19.
So Wolverine isn't being as skeevy
No.
as he looks.
No, but
she's
he's...
very much an adult.
Yep, but he is not going to let it be with that, so he is still being skeevy. That's
Yes.
gross, but let's do something else. Here's Aurora Monroe. That seems better.
Yeah, love
Yeah.
her.
She isn't spending the night down socializing with her teammates either. Instead, she soars, distant through the skies above the estate. She does like it here. It's so different from what she's used to in Africa, and it's very exciting to her. But she doesn't have the skies to herself for long, though. Soon she's joined by Angel. They flirt a bit, and it's cute.
You know? I mean, I was actually about to just knock the land of humanity came to last, but no, she's absolutely correct. I completely forgot that, yes, humans took
Yeah, I
the
guess
long
that
way.
is true, yes.
Because of the land bridge.
Because of the
Yep.
land bridge, humans got to America last.
That's true. Tell me, what's a gorgeous angel like you doing in a place like this?
Should that not be my question, Angel, since you are far more beautiful than I?
Forbear, gentle lady, I'll blush.
I but state the obvious.
So that's cute, though. I love that.
Oh my god.
Well, Warren saw her take up take off up here, so he came on to join her. He thinks she's a total babe, and it'd be nice to have someone to fly with, and hey, he's kind of sweet on her. We do know Warren moves pretty quick.
Yeah.
But in the middle of his pitch, he spots Wolverine down below making a play on Jean, so he peels off to go toss Logan into a fucking tree, because the lady said, back off!
Lowlife. I knew that little lowlife roughneck creep was gonna be trouble. Wolverine is totally the guy in cowboy boots and a cowboy hat.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Both of those things actually true, 100%. Warren turns to Jean, looking for pats on the head for what a good boy he was.
Warren calls him shrimp.
But like a sane person, Jean is like, Warren, literally what the fuck was that? Did you not learn in kindergarten not to fucking solve problems with your fists?
No. That's always what he does about everything all the time.
Entirely true. But instead, Angel carries on turning to Wolverine like, hey, that's my buddy's girl you're hitting on there, so back off because you're not worth her anyways.
Oh boy.
Which of course gets Wolvie pissed. He's back up and on his feet.
And ready to murder somebody.
Yep, things are about to come to blows, and Jean does her best to separate them, but it's actually straining her to hold the two apart. Aurora decides to intervene, crashing them apart with lightning, and then just soaking the whole yard in a downpour.
Okay.
Cool off, hotheads!
Which does work, though Warren is still pissed, like, Wolverine just pulled his claws on me in a fucking argument. This man is insane. How am I supposed to trust this fucking madman?
I mean, you did attack him, but he did try to murder you, so...
Right. Storm's like, okay, who picked this fight? Like what you just said, he's like, claws! No! Jean tries to get Logan up, but he seems equally affected by his actions. Jean tries to get Logan to his feet, but he seems equally affected by his actions, realizing how far out of line he was with that, and he shouldn't be around people. He's too dangerous. He's a killer.
Oh. I like that his hair is wilting.
I do too.
Because he uses product, obviously.
I appreciate that he recognizes that maybe he shouldn't have tried to kill a man.
Absolutely. But Jean's like, hey, you're a person in need, and I want to help. The professor wants to help.
Jean loves the project.
We want to help.
Jean likes...
She does,
fixer-upper.
doesn't she?
She does.
She has a type, and it's fixer-uppers.
By the end of the night, at least two people remain awake. One of them, Professor Charles Xavier, and the other, Jean Grey, wrought with conflict, who's found her way here as well. Charles notes that she did a good job last night in the garden. He also continues along on the topic of Wolverine, acknowledging that the man does need work. He's rough around the edges, but he's got good potential. Jean then shakes her head. She won't be staying. She feels a strong attraction to Wolverine, and the longer they're in the same vicinity, the more she worries about giving in and doing something stupid.
As I said, the
Wow.
woman loves a project.
But there's not just that, she also just had a near-death experience. What about life beyond the X-Men? Is there ever time for Jean Grey rather than Marvel Girl? What
No.
about the rest of her life? There's so much to see and do and experience, and she feels trapped here. Not to mention, if the dream is to live among humanity, how can they do it living here cloistered together away from it? Charles is sad to see her go, but he doesn't attempt to stop her. At the end of the day, she has to follow her heart, and so a new day begins on these well wishes.
Wow.
That's what we got.
Okay.
So, what did we think of these two different things? We've got the silly superhero spectacular with Len Wein.
Giant size X-Men.
Giant size X-Men.
I mean, the issue itself,
It was honestly pretty solid.
I mean, it wasn't the most interesting thing, but it was not bad.
The only thing I really had an issue with was how splitting them up into groups ended up being pointless in the narrative. I understand it had a purpose in the writing to actually, like, kind of show off their characters a little bit more. But, like, in the greater...
Yeah.
The actual story, there was no fucking point to it.
Yeah, it does seem very silly, especially since none of them really accomplish anything on the way there. It's just a straight trip.
Right.
Now, I am kind of wondering, so, okay, how many of these characters first show up here?
Most of them.
I want to go back to the fucking group picture, honestly.
Because, I mean, Wolverine is a Hulk character.
Let's see, Wolverine Banshee and Sunfire, I know, have already existed.
He's been here, he's been here, he's been here.
The guys standing on the stairs have
Yeah.
all been here before. The rest of them haven't.
Right.
And
they might have done that on purpose, actually.
Yeah,
you know
no,
what?
they mentioned in it.
This was a choice. This was a very bold choice.
Very clearly.
They brought back the X-Men. And they did it by...
They brought back the X-Men, and also just look at the cast that they chose.
Right.
There
is a distinct...
There is a statement being made here.
It's very different from...
Again, I've mentioned this before, how I liken it to the fact that putting Chekhov on the bridge of the Enterprise was a big thing.
I was about to say, this looks like the bridge of an Enterprise.
It really does, actually. But
they may not stick the landing with everything they did, but it's not like Star Trek did that either.
No. It's like putting a Soviet on the team is a choice. Putting a black woman as not just a member of the team, but the powerhouse of the fucking team is a choice.
Who is a goddess in her homeland.
We've got a veteran here who has distinctly reasonable takes on...
Who's a Native American.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I just weirdly phrased that, but yeah. We have a Native American war veteran who has distinct thoughts on the way he's been treated, a distinct political take on that.
And we have an oppressed German who gives us some vibes of something else.
As we go, we'll see there are more vibes of he travels with Romani folk.
He's from the circus, and that's generally coded that way.
I recognized the vibe. Maybe not. I didn't see Romani, but I mean, the old hate.
Yeah,
from that.
I figured where you were going, but I just wanted to lend a little bit more of the knowledge I have on it.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And then we brought some characters who already existed.
Yeah, I think we're off on a great start.
I think
I always feel that Giant Size X-Men is more important than it is great, but its impact historically is important. I'm gonna put it at 4, keeping that in mind.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. 4 out of 5.
The story itself is it's a weird, silly, big thing.
It's fine,
but
it's serviceable.
But this one page, the first page of chapter 2,
and when there was one,
is just wow. Yeah, we'll go 4.
All right. What about Classic X-Men number 1, First Night?
I think it was a fairly valuable addition because it kind of fleshed out the dynamics a lot more.
And it also gives us a little preview for the kind of writing we have to look forward to.
This is a lot of what Chris Claremont, the big thing is all these people act like people. We have times for the X-Men to play baseball games. We have trips to the mall and silly little things that make them people.
Because, like, these days, mostly you hear about the complaints that, in retrospect, about some of these creators. The things they did wrong.
I will never say that there are not a number of choices that Mr. Claremont made that I do not agree with, but he is, compared to what we have been reading, even in the lead up to this, between these two stories, you can see why he would be fairly revolutionary.
How far ahead is he at the proper helm of the ship?
He starts writing in the next issue of X-Men, but he's not alone on it for less than 10 issues. Eventually he takes over. I could get you an exact number on that.
That's fine. No, I just wanted a general...
Yeah, but
so it's like... So within like a year, Claremont is more or less writing this. It puts the look back at this... Even though... Classic X-Men was written in 86, and this was written in, 75,
I think?
Yeah. Even though they're a decade apart, it's still Claremont. I think I'm starting to get why X-Men was...
And why I keep talking like the fucking Zealot, too.
No, I mean,
it looks like He takes over the helm fully at X-Men 97. Our next one is X-Men 94.
So it's coming.
He's already got a hand on the wheel, pretty much, but he's not driving yet.
But once but even with a hand on the wheel.
Right. Anyway, so that's, what do we want to rate that one as?
I want to give it a 5.
I'm gonna go with actually 3.5 because it didn't make a whole bunch of movement. There wasn't much in the way of movement. There was a lot of good emotional stuff. I also don't love John Bolton's penciling. I'm sorry, Mr. X National Security.
I think I'm also gonna give that one a 4. It was not a story so much as it was character development.
Right, and that was all good, and it was all well done.
I think I want to defend my 5. I don't think we've ever really had character development for...
Not quite in that way, no.
No, not a lot, no.
That's kind of revolutionary.
And that is where we have Mr. Claremont. Yep, so I guess that's what we've got, so we just have to... wrap things on up.
Okay.
KISS Superfans, if you want to shoot us any emails, let us know what's your favorite KISS personality. Are you the Star Child or the Demon?
What are these words?
Are you the Catman?
I don't understand.
Anybody who is not a KISS Superfan can also shoot us an email. You can also hit up our social media. We are on Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook. Comicsplaining in all of those locations.
I also finally put up some of our Pride pictures on our Instagram.
Yay!
I tried to upload a video, but it was too big.
God damn it. Was it the cops?
No, it was the marching band.
Oh, the marching band.
Because that video is like 2 minutes long.
It is, because there was so much happening.
Yeah. Marching band, and then a giant, super long pride flag. And then an Elton John impersonator.
But anyway, so we've got that up now, too. If you want to watch a video version of the show, you can kind of see what we're talking about when we say Wolverine is trying to make himself look tall.
And Colossus is wearing a very slutty outfit.
Always. He's got the thigh-high boots, you know?
The thigh-high boots and the slits up the side.
They gave him pants on this page, though. He doesn't usually have pants.
Yeah, it's weird. When he turns into Colossus, all of a sudden his pants disappear.
Yeah.
And Bobby's got issues with that. I mean, look at the man. He's already a colossus as it is.
He's a catch.
No wonder.
Big beefy farmer boy's got those muscles. Corn-fed.
And he's like...
He's nice.
Kind of sweet and nice.
He's actually nice.
He's an artist.
He's an artist. He's got a sensitive side.
He loves his little sister. So
that could be very confusing for a young man.
And he's not willing to turn down the anger when he realizes he's wrong.
He is willing to turn down the anger.
I love all of them. Anyway, so like and subscribe and hit the bell button over there. If you'd like to support the show monetarily, we have our Patreon, where we now have one bonus outside of our usual outtake stuff.
Yeah.
But we're going to start trying to do once a month. We're going to talk about a ridiculous comic book that something like the Avengers fight bullying or things like that. So we're going to try and get one of those out once every month. If you join at the $5 tier, we've got those for you. Join at the tier below that, you get access to the show a day early. You can also throw us a few bucks over on coffee, but there's no big pressure on that. Rate and review us on whatever your podcatcher of podcatcher. I always fuck that up.
Always do that.
We're dying of heat,
on your
by the way.
On your podcatcher of choice.
I think you guys catch it worse than I do because you're inside the group.
Yeah, you have air over there.
What to tell you, man? This is my mic. I have to sit here.
We're gonna be back with you next week with Thor, and we look forward to talking to you then. Bye.
Bye.